Welcome to Friendly Math 101. Today our lesson is on factoring trinomials by grouping. Let's take a look at our first example. Here we have 5x squared plus 32x plus 12. The first step is to always factor out the GCF. In this case, the GCF is 1, so we could go straight to the second step, which is multiplying our first and our last terms together. We're going to list out all the possible factors of 60x squared, which include 1x and 60x, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15, 5 and 12, and 6 and 10. We're looking for the pair of factors that will add up to the middle term, which is 32x. And that happens to be 2x and 30x. So we're going to replace 32x with those pairs of factors. I'm going to write 5x squared plus 2x plus 30x plus 12. And it doesn't matter what order we write those factors. Now we're going to group the first two terms together and the last two terms together. And within these binomials, we're going to factor out the greatest common factor. So here I could factor out x, and I'm left with 5x plus 2. And in the second group, I could factor out 6. So it's a positive 6. I'm going to write plus 6, and then we're left with 5x plus 2. So we're going to group together the GCFs of what we just factored out, which is x plus 6, and then you'll notice that the factor we have remaining is actually the same, which is going to be our second factor, 5x plus 2. And that's how we factor this trinomial. Let's take a look at another example. So here, our greatest common factor is 2. So we're going to go ahead and divide that out of the trinomial. We're left with 9n squared plus 30n plus 16. So I'm just going to circle the GCF so I don't forget to include that as a part of our answer. Now we're going to multiply the first and the last term together. We get 144n squared, and let's go ahead and list out all the pairs of factors. So 1 and 144, 2 and 72, 3, 48, 4 and 36, 6 and 24, 8 and 18, 9 and 16, and 12 and 12. Really, I could have stopped once I saw the factors that add up to 30, but I just listed them out anyway. The factors here that add up to 30 will be 6n and 24n. So I'm going to replace 30n with 6n and 24n when I write this out. So it's going to be 9n squared plus 6n plus 24n plus 16. Group the first two and the last two terms together, and we're going to factor out the greatest common factor in each binomial. So here I could factor out 3n. We're left with 3n plus 2. And then here I could factor out positive 8, and we're left with 3n plus 2. So we group what we had factored out, our GCFs together, that's one factor. Well, let's don't forget about the 2 there. So 3n plus 8 is going to be one of our factors, and then what we have that's common, 3n plus 2. Let's do one more example. So here, our greatest common factor is 1, so we'll go straight to multiplying that first term and the last term together. We get 280a squared. So let's list out all of our factors. 1a and 280a, 2 and 140, 4 and 70, 5 and 56, 7 and 40, 8 and 35, 10 and 28, and 14 and 20. So this problem's a little tricky because they have to multiply to give us positive 280, but add to give us negative 34. So we know that our two factors actually have to be negative. That's the only way they'll multiply to give us a positive and add to give us a negative. And so we're looking at 14 and 20a, but they both have to be negative in order for it to add up to negative 34. So we have to be really careful about our signs when we're replacing them here. So this is going to be 8a squared minus 14a minus 20a plus 35. We'll group our first two and our last two together, and then we'll factor out the greatest common factor within each binomial. So here I could factor out 2a, and we're left with 4a minus 7. And then here, since our expression begins with a negative, we're going to have to factor out a negative 5. And again, we're left with 4a minus 7. And so let's group our GCFs together. That's going to be one factor, 2a minus 5. And then what we had that was in common is our second factor. And that is how you factor trinomials by grouping. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave your questions in the comments section below. And for more math tutorials, subscribe to our channel, Friendly Math 101.